to another episode of E&E. Today we're joined by Panama real estate expert who is living in Panama City for many years. He's seen the market through its ups and downs, and we're going to hear directly from someone who's been here in Panama for more than just a minute on how he ended up here and how he found his way into becoming one of the most sought after professionals in all of Panama. Matthew, thank you. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you're ready to tell your story.
Thank you for that introduction. That was better than my mother could have given.
Well, I mean, you sold me my place, so obviously I have a very high regard for your skills. I want to talk to you about how you decided to make Panama your home, because in another conversation I had, a lot of us from Estados Unidos, we come during the latter part of our life, and we've looked at this as kind of a retirement home, but you didn't. And what I'm starting to see is a lot of younger people. When I say younger, we're talking, sub 40s. They're starting to make the move here earlier. So before you start telling me about your journey, what I'd like to hear about is how busy are you these days, and how's the market?
Oh man, that's a great question. Panama's market is very seasonal. So right now we are in the midst of busy season, which typically starts around November and goes all the way through Easter weekend, middle of March, or I'm sorry, middle of April. So right now we are rocking and rolling. I mean, even before we signed on, I told you I was running a little bit late because showings are going back to back and you're just constantly, on the phone and putting out fires.
Well, hopefully a lot of those fires turn into be opportunities for you. So
Yeah, they typically are. They typically are.
where are you coming to us from right now? We can
I
tell you're at a resort. You're at least at a pool. So tell us about where you're at.
I am. I'm actually at the Club de Golf de Panama.
Okay.
It's a private golf community here in Panama, just on the northeast side of the city, about 20 minutes from the airport, about 25 minutes from downtown Panama City along Avenue de Balboa. And it's the number one golf course in the country. It's where they hold the Panama Championship every year, with the Corn Ferry tournament. The guys that are competing to get their PGA Tour card come every year to shoot 4 rounds of golf.
No, that's cool, and I wish I was a golfer. I that's a skill I have to develop. But I think a lot of people when they visit Panama, well, first of all, when people initially come, they don't know what to expect, and then they come and they see the skyline with all the skyscrapers, and it's a major city. But there's a lot more to Panama than just skyscrapers, and what you're showing us is there's basically all types of different real estate options for someone who either wants to live here or invest here.
That's it. I mean, I'm 25 minutes from downtown, and you don't see a skyscraper anywhere along the coastline, along the horizon. This is, it's a completely different feel, different community than what you would get from, where you're broadcasting from right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do want to get into how you found your way here, because, and I kind of jabbed a little bit. There are a lot of people coming to Panama, and it can give the impression that it's a new market, but you've been here for a long time. So can you give us just an idea or a sense of how you made your way into being a real estate professional in Panama? And was this something that was always your goal, or was it an opportunity that you just couldn't pass up?
Yeah. So address the first question. I came here with thinking it would just be 2 years of living abroad. I grew up in the South Florida area, thought it, just kind of get that off the bucket list and go back to Florida. My first 8 months in Panama, I was living in David, Chiriquí, about 30 minutes from the Costa Rican border, and just hated it. Could not wait to get out of there. Was counting down the days, till the 2 years was up, and then moved to Panama City. And it was just like a flashbulb moment. Like right away, I knew instantly that's what I wanted. It was a lot of growth, a lot of energy, and Miami light, which is what I was used to. So I was then 27 years old. That 2 years is now going on 15 years. And
Wow.
I don't think I'll be leaving Panama anytime soon. I've seen a lot of changes, mostly for the better, and just love the energy, love the people that are moving here, and just love the culture.
And one of the things that I love about here is a new word that I learned in Spanish, amigable. So the people here are just very friendly.
They are.
Um, but it's also a pretty strong business climate. So I had talked to you, I think once in the past about, there's buying homes, but you're actually starting to see, or maybe you've always seen it, a lot of investment opportunities or real estate investors coming into Panama. Is that something that's continuing, or is that something that's seasonal, like you mentioned earlier?
So actually, we saw it slow down a little bit, and now we're getting into a really interesting point where developers are figuring out the investors are looking for Airbnb type rentals. And in Panama City, you cannot have an Airbnb type, short term 45 less than 45-day rental unless your building has the proper licensing, proper permitting. So developers are starting to produce smaller units, about, let's call it, a little over 400 square feet to 700 square feet, and the building is being constructed with the licensing already in place. Developers, so investors are starting to flock to these properties. They're being sold before the developer can even put a shovel in the ground.
And that totally makes sense. So I've spoken with people who are saying they're looking at newer units and they're just way too small to live in. But
That's right.
they may be looking at buildings that were actually constructed for the sole purpose of being an Airbnb and they're properly licensed. And the key is being licensed, because in Panama City, you can't do the short term rental, but you can do it in other surrounding areas, if I'm correct.
And that's it. So that law actually only pertains to the municipality of Panama City. Once you leave the city, cross the canal, as we say, all bets are off. You can rent for, by the day if you like, by the month, by the week. There's no limitation.
Okay, okay. So now I'm going to get a little bit personal, just on a professional level, though. You
Mhm.
you're an expat. You moved here from United States, from Florida. Can anyone who has a pensionado visa work in Panama?
No. So actually, if you have a pensionado visa, you cannot work in Panama. That is to say, you cannot work for a Panamanian company. You don't have a work permit.
So that's
Now,
two separate things, right? So having your cedula and having a work permit are two separate things.
that's correct. You do need to have two different identifications, two different permits. Your cedula is basically your government ID. You have to use it almost daily when you're going to visit a friend at the security. They want to register you. You're filling out forms at the bank. You're anything. You're going to use your cedula. Your work permit is a different ID card. It's a different visa, different process all together. And the pensionado, it translates to pension. So they're assuming you're going to be a retiree, is not eligible or immediately eligible for a work permit. But that doesn't limit you from being a digital nomad and working for an overseas company. Um, but you just will not have a work permit for a Panamanian company.
Okay, and I don't mean to put you in a place where you're having to speak as a visa expert. But what I did want to just kind of highlight that, just the mere fact of being here with a visa does not necessarily mean you can work here. Although, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, if you know, there isn't anything prohibiting you from necessarily starting a business, assuming that it's not a protected industry.
That's it. There you go. You took the words out of my mouth. There are some protected industries, lawyers, doctors, a few others down the line where you actually have to be a Panamanian citizen, not just a resident, but an actual citizen.
Okay, cool, cool. So, what would you tell someone who is maybe considering moving to Panama, but is a little bit on the younger side? Um, is this a good time to buy, or do you? Because I know you deal with both rentals and purchasing. Is it
Mhm.
something where you still recommend people maybe you rent out for a while? Like, what are you seeing from the new? And maybe I'm seeing something totally different. So correct me there too. What are you seeing from the younger groups that are starting to move here? And I know you're probably seeing from different countries too.
Sure. That's right. And there's really no right or wrong answer. It depends on each person's individual situation. If you've been to Panama several times, you know this is going to be it. By all means, if you find the property you're looking for, purchase it. If you're not sure, if you're on the fence, or maybe this is your first time living overseas, a rental might be a better play for you. Kind of kick the tires before you decide to heavily invest in country. So there's no right or wrong answer. I've been on tours with people where it's 100% rental, 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 or hey, this is our first trip. We just kind of want to see a few properties. And as soon as that door swings open, they said, "This is it." Like you just have the feeling, and you're going to purchase it right away. You know that you know it.
So what separates me coming to Panama Equity, me being just somebody who just arrived in the city? from dealing with any number of other real estate agents? Like, what do you feel like you bring, or people come to you for specifically?
Well, our company slogan is delivering a professional real estate experience in Panama. We do try to bring some of that know-how and some of our own background. You know, the managing partner at Panama Equity is also from the US, Kent Davis. So, you know, we were brought up in that community. We're used to seeing that type of work ethic. And quite honestly, we're not right for everyone. I always recommend interviewing a few different people and seeing who you kind of mesh with. That, you know, Aaron, that's how you got to me. You were working with a few other people and we just kind of clicked, and I think you appreciated what I brought to the table.
Absolutely, and I definitely appreciated you finding a local watering hole for me that's right around the corner, which has since closed, but that's not under your control. Um, how did you find your way into real estate? Like, is that something? Were you? Let me ask you this: were you always an entrepreneur when you look back on your childhood? Would someone have said, "Yeah, you're probably going to be someone"? Because let's face it, if you're a real estate agent, you're effectively an entrepreneur.
The answer is no. I was not. I was always brought up. My parents are very much blue collar. My mother, you know, raised us cleaning houses. My father, you know, was a shoe repairman. Very basic, you know, hardworking people. And I always thought 9 to 5 office job is like where it's at. You know, if I can get a 9 to 5 office job and not have to work as hard as my parents, that is going to be amazing. But that work ethic, they instill it in you. It's in your blood. And I fell into this industry just with dumb luck. I went to school, University of Florida, uh, for marketing, and I always thought I was going to be in marketing my entire life. I love the industry, but I was working for a company here, and I just wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy. I felt like there was more, and got in touch with Kent. We had known each other for years, and he offered me a position. And I knew from day one this was going to be it. I was able to still practice my marketing chops, and then you know get into the sales side and just meeting new people. I love talking to new people. You know that I'm going to different networking events a few times a week just because I love you know shaking hands and meeting new backgrounds.
You know what? And that's actually a really good point. And my apologies for missing the last one. I was worn out. I took a tour of the city, and it was like, okay, I'm done. Um, I do very much enjoy going to the one business networking event. I think is actually sponsored from you or sponsored from your company.
Panama Business Club. It's something we joined or we created.
Absolutely. So there is a network of entrepreneurs or even people who are maybe getting their toes in the water of thinking they want to buy a business. Can you tell me about what kinds of businesses you see in dealing with the members of that group? It's bigger than now. It's maybe a couple of hundred people now.
Oh yeah, we have a few hundred members. When you know we do mixers about twice a month, every other Tuesday more or less, and we typically get 50 to 60 people at each mixer. Um, it really runs the gamut. You know, obviously I've got the real estate under control. We get marketers, investors, bankers, um, a lot of financiers. We've seen a lot of the crypto guys coming through as well. I
Oh,
mean, down to someone who's selling packing tape. It really runs the gamut.
there's two people I remember distinctly meeting at your event. One person, I believe he imports dog food because this is a very dog friendly country. Like everyone has a dog, and if you don't, you're kind of off to the side. So he makes his living, I believe, importing pet food. And then another person, if I remember this correctly, she has like a farm for like what are those things called? Like it's like
Like
a
hydroponics, you
snail
talking
or
about the
something.
vertical farms?
So,
Yeah.
what's
Oh,
that?
well, there's sea cucumbers. We have the
Sea
sea
cucumbers.
cucumber.
That's it. Sea cucumbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we even have a matchmaker, a professional matchmaker that comes to every event.
And then you also have a jewelry smith, someone who I remember he came here, started a jewelry company, and then I believe just gave it to the employees. So you
Yeah,
have like all different sorts of opportunities, and you're seeing them all. You see
it's an
all
eclectic
sorts of
crowd.
different things.
It is. It's an eclectic crowd. We like to get together, rub elbows, and you know, tell some stories.
Definitely, definitely. It's an event I would highly recommend anyone who's even just visiting, if you're trying to decide what you're going to do while you're here, you know, take a moment to stop the tours. I mean, the tours are great, but come meet the people who are actually making a living here and find out what the network's all about, because they're actually a really open group, and you're going to find all walks of life rubbing elbows together.
Aaron, it's important to have a balance. The tours are extremely important. They're going to show you parts of Panama that I just can't reach. I'm not going out to Boquete, and it's important to see all the different areas because each area has a different energy, a different lifestyle. But get off the tour, include a few extra days after or before the tour, and meet some of the people that have already made the move you're considering.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the other thoughts I had was, um, if you're here and you can reach out to a lot, there's so many Facebook groups. You can reach out to someone and they'll meet you. Like it's a pretty close knit community, and everything is, there's a subway here, and everyone uses Uber, so you can always find someone to meet up with. Um, what would you? Oh, I have one more question. I wanted to ask you this. So, what are some ancillary fields to real estate where you think there's still an opportunity um, for people who may already be doing it in the United States to come out here and do something similar? I'll give you an example of what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Um, Loan officers or things of that nature, or bookkeepers. I'm assuming that if you have that skill set in the States, you could probably transfer it here. No?
Absolutely. Loan offers might be tough, but bookkeepers are always in demand, especially if you're licensed in the U.S. I had a call from someone just this week that asked me if I knew someone that was a U.S. notary locally. So there's definitely opportunity. There's definitely room for growth. You mentioned, there's a lot of these Facebook groups and doing videos like you're doing and educating people. We all come from different walks of life. There's always a new angle, a different perspective that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's really all I wanted to know is like, oh, last final question. What's the likelihood that you're going to retire back in the US? I do know it's a
Zero.
fluid thing.
It's zero. There's zero chance. I go back to the U.S. and after about 3 or 4 days, I get the itch. I need to get back to Panama. There's a reason why I stayed. It's just beautiful down here. The cost of living is insanely low compared to what I'm used to in Miami. Now, has it gone up? Of course, but it's still much lower than some of the major cities in the U.S. You can really find some amazing deals, daily lifestyle, and Panama's a small community. I imagine this probably has already started happening to you. You go to a restaurant, you go to a coffee shop, you're going to run into friends no matter where you are in the city. You're going to run into people.
That's true. And the flip side of that is, if you are someone who kind of is just done, doesn't want to deal with people from the Estados Unidos, from the United States, you can always just come and be with the locals and not have any dealings at all.
That's it. And there's also the opportunity they have in Panama to travel. With Copa, you have direct flights to just about every major city in the US and throughout Latin America. You know quite well. I'm constantly traveling just because it's so darn accessible and affordable.
We've got a cruise terminal now right off the Amador Causeway, which was new to me. I'm looking out of my balcony, thank you very much, and looking at these gigantic cruise ships
Yeah.
now port in Panama City. And
Yes, sir.
when you talk about uh, the cost, I and you and I've talked about this. It's cheaper, but it's not necessarily cheap. So it definitely is relative to where you're
Right.
coming from. But one of the things we noticed going even grocery shopping was, um, sometimes you forget where you're coming from. So you might look at something and say, "Ooh, that looks a little expensive," but the inflation is actually hitting everywhere. So you go and look, you pull up on a website, and I look on HEB, and it turns out the same thing that I'm looking at is the same price. So sometimes you can maybe forget that inflation is hitting everyone, but you're still better off here because you don't have to have mandatory health insurance. You don't have to have, your property taxes are manageable, especially if you get a good deal. Um,
Yeah.
all those are
Eh,
good.
property taxes are much lower than what people are used to paying in the States, especially if you're coming from states like Florida, Texas, or California,
Oh yeah,
Canada as a whole. You hit the head, you hit the nail on the head with health insurance. It's extremely affordable here. Even if you don't have insurance, still it's
you don't
very
need it.
affordable. Uh, and there's a difference between cheap and cheaper. It's not cheap, but it's definitely cheaper.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, I'm going to let you get back on the road. I know you got more places to sell, so thanks for spending time, and hopefully I can find some time with you over the next couple of days.
Sounds good, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye.